I'd like to highlight just one or two statistics here. The high number of births in Kenya is largely blamed on low use of family planning. Let's see if we can run some of those numbers for you. They're just coming up in moments on your screens just to give you an indication of what we're looking at. And there it is. Kenya's current population is about 40 million people. The number is expected to rise to 60 million by 2030 and 100 million by 2050. That's according to UN projections. Let's look at some of the other numbers. Average family sizes in Kenya, 4.7, Nigeria, 5.5, South Africa, 2.5, United Kingdom, 1.9. So pretty varied in different countries. The same with the US, China, and India. Much smaller than what we've seen for Kenya and Nigeria there. And then the modern contraceptives, we have the pills, injectables, male, female condoms, female sterilization. That's just some of the modern contraceptives in family planning. And of course the IUD or the coil as well. And then married women, that's a look at which ones are used most. So for married women, they mostly use injectables. That's 48% of married women. Pills, 32% of married women. Rhythm, 15% of married women. Male condoms, 14%. And withdrawal, 7.3%. And then unmarried and sexually active women. Condoms tops the list at 42.2%. Injectables is second at 37%. Pills at 27.8%. Rhythm at 15%. And withdrawal at 6.8%. Let's see if we have a few more statistics for you. Use of contraceptives, highest in central Kenya. That's 67% of people in central Kenya are using contraceptives. And in western, 47%. In between there, we have Nairobi at 55% and Eastern at 52%. Rift Valley, 42%. Nyanza, 37%. Coast, 34%. And then down there, the list is Northeastern at just 4%. That's the use of contraceptives there. These are the reasons why family planning isn't adopted or embraced in these various regions. 9% religion, 8.5% menopause, 7.8% more children, 6.9% infertility, and 6.9% as well low fertility. Right, let's see if we have anything else. I think that's all we have for the moment. Interesting numbers there. Just to reintroduce my panel once again. At my far right, we have Dr. SK. That's what he said he wants to be referred to, gynecologist. Of course, we have Dr. Guyo Jaldesa, who's also a gynecologist. On my left, we have Dr. Patrick Amoth, Head of Family, Ministry of Health. And finally, Mrs. Esther Mutua, who works for the Family Health Options Kenya. So thank you all so much for coming. And the reason why we really wanted to have this discussion is because there's so many myths surrounding family planning. Esther, maybe we can start with you. What is family planning?
If we look at the WHO, or that's the World Health Organization definition of family planning is the right of individuals or couples to determine, to decide freely and responsibly on the timing, the number, and the spacing of pregnancy. And mainly this is achieved through use of various contraceptive methods. And as the discussions go on, we'll realize that the ability of a woman to decide on the number of children that she has directly impacts on her health, as well as the outcome of her pregnancies and also the health of her children. But
a lot of the time, it's not really down to her.
Yeah, I know that
we'll discover.
Yes, yeah, we have. Yeah.
All right, let me turn to you, Dr. Jaldesa. Why are people so afraid of family planning? There's a fear, real fear, that some people don't want to adopt it altogether.
Number one, I want to summarize family planning as family health. The families that use family planning are likely to be more healthier. The mothers are more or less likely to die of pregnancy-related complications. They are less likely to have unintended pregnancies. They are unlikely to have less sepsis and abortions and all other complications that could occur as a result of unintended pregnancy. So that's the first point. So family planning is equivalent to family health. Why do people afraid? People are afraid of family planning because of lack of knowledge. They do not know the benefits. And of course, there are so many myths.
Yeah.
And for example, sterilization is taken by people to mean castration for men or women. And therefore, nobody wants that kind of a thing.
Okay, I want to go to delve into the myths in just a moment, but you've already explained it's really lack of knowledge that intimidates people. Let's go to you, Dr. SK. What are your thoughts on family planning? In the past, I know you've spoken out very much, you're pro-life. A lot of people know that about you.
Yes.
So is it the same thing with family planning?
No, it is not. In fact, I think the misnomer of the term family planning and narrowing it up to a very tiny little bit of what family life is all about is the problem here. Planning of family is holistic. It involves planning for food, planning for school fees, planning for livelihood, planning for taking care of the family. And one little bit of planning in the family is spacing of children, which is not a new technology. It is something that which started with our first parents, Adam and Eve.
So you support it?
So what I say is that a family that has not been planned has never been able to exist because it is holistic. That family planning in its full sense is really the organizing of every resource available to the family for the survival of that family.
Okay.
But spacing of children, that little bit of it has been covered over years.
Let me pose a question before I go to Dr. Amoth. Yes. If you have a couple who are not well off, for instance, they're struggling to get by, and they end up having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children because for them, family planning isn't religion-wise, maybe the will of God, for example. Do you support that notion that as long as there's a couple that are together, happy, and want to raise a family, even though they're unable to sustain them, do you support the notion that they should go ahead and do it? Or do you think they need to step back and say, we need to control this?
If you hear anybody in this country or anywhere in the world say that a family with a particular number of children, they have total misconception of what families are all about. Children in families are part of the holistic organization of the needs of a family.
All right, let me come back to you just now, Dr. Amoth. I know a lot of the people, and I stand to be corrected even by you, Esther, who do not use contraceptives or don't adopt to family planning are in rural areas. There's a lot of information that says these methods don't reach them, the information doesn't reach them. What are you doing as a ministry to ensure that there's a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of accessibility, particularly for the people who need it the most in rural areas?
As a ministry, one of the first things that we have done to be able to ensure that family planning services are available at the rural areas is that we have developed policies. And once we develop policies, then we cascade the policies down to the facilities, the lowest level of the facility. Then the other important aspect that we are bringing on board is what we call the community strategy, where we have community health workers and community health extension workers who reside within the community and are able to pass family planning messages. These people are usually the community members tend to believe them because they see them as our own.
Right.
And therefore that increases the acceptance of family planning.
But is it working? Are you seeing results on the ground?
We are seeing results on the ground. I look at the figures that we projected. If you look at the figures of 1978, the average Kenyan woman had 8.1 children in 1978. Now in 2008, 2009, that has come to 4.6.
Okay.
We are doing our KDHS, Kenya Demographic and Health Survey, and hopefully we think that this should come to less than 4.
All right. Esther, you're on the ground. Give us a picture of where we are with regards to where we need to be as a country. Are we doing badly? Is there a concern that if we continue to see people fight the notion of family planning for whatever reason, there's going to be real issues and consequences to face in the future?
I think as a country, for a long time, we have made some strides towards achieving our goals and our objectives. I know for now we are at, according to the Kenya Demographic Health Survey, we are at 46%. That's the contraceptive prevalence rate. And the goal by 2015 is for the country to be at 56%. So we still have a 10-point margin, which is to achieve within a period of 1 year. And maybe to echo what Daktari has said, there are measures that are being put in place to ensure that we get to that.
And we will in 1 year?
No, okay,
you're hopeful?
Maybe we might not get there, but at least we'll make some useful strides. Like looking at the community strategy and what we are also doing on the ground, it becomes quite hard for these women, especially the rural women, to get to the health facilities, to get these to get the services. So what we are doing as an organization is taking the services to the women through outreaches. So we make sure that the women are mobilized at the community level, and then we take the services to them there. That increases access to their accessibility. The other issue would be the issue of skills of the service providers, because that has been a gap where all the service providers are not trained to provide quality services. So we have been building the capacity of service providers
so that they're able to
they're able to provide and also increase their competencies to provide quality services and also accurate and complete information to dispel the myths and misconceptions about family planning.
Thank you for that. We want to also introduce a couple who is in the other studio. There we have it. We have Fadhili and Violet Mohammed, who are going to tell us a little bit about their own story regarding family planning and why they decided to adopt it. Initially, we understand that Fadhili was against the notion of his wife using family planning. He eventually adopted it and agreed to it. They're listening in on the discussion, and we'll be able to talk to them. They'll also be able to ask us any questions or ask the panelists as well. And we're also seeing a lot of people sending in their details. Yes, it's a couple. That's a couple, Fadhili and Violet Mohammed. So they're listening in to the discussion. Let's go back to you now, Dr. Jaldesa. Let's look at the options of family planning. Again, like you said, you were just about to start talking about the myths. And it's so interesting. When we were having this discussion earlier on in the newsroom, so many people were talking about the numerous myths that they've had. Some people even went as far as to say that they know of women who adopted a certain method of family planning. They ended up having major side effects for 2-3 months, and eventually they just couldn't do it anymore, and now they're off family planning. So there is a real fear and concern that some of these methods affect the human body. So what are the methods, and when should they be adopted?
Okay, there are various methods of family planning, and the wider the choices, the better it is for the woman, because there's no single method which may fit everybody, and that women need to be aware of the various options. Number one, most modern methods of family planning are safe.
Most
of them are. Actually, we can say almost all of them are safe. Of course, there are certain methods which might have complications with 1 or 2 individuals. And the best way of coming over this problem is through appropriate counseling. That the woman understands what she's taking, how to use the method, and if there are side effects, she understands those side complications of the product and adjust accordingly, so that if she has any problem with the method she has been given, she can always go back to a health care provider and get
So
advice.
not every method works for every woman.
That's correct. So there are some which are good for everybody.
Such as?
But the thing is, any effect of those methods are always reversible.
Which ones? Like you're saying some of them are okay for everyone. Which ones?
Actually, there's no method which is, you can say, is totally contraindicated for anybody.
Oh, so wait, so you're saying not one of them can work for everyone? There's not one that can work for every woman?
Yes, but there's no method that you can say cannot be used by anybody. There are these categories of people, like, for example, unmarried women, or people who have not given birth before, cannot use this. Or women who have had several babies before should not be using this one.
That doesn't exist?
That does not exist.
Okay. All right. Would you like to step in as well?
Yes, I would like to step in and say that I've seen numbers bandied around. They can confuse people. I think it is important to know that in the whole world, no matter how developed a country is, the number of children, the fertility rate must be 2.2 to be at zero population growth. Replace the woman, replace the man, and then replace the natural attrition. That is the US, that is Europe. You come to Africa, children who die when they are young are very many. For zero population growth in Africa, you need a minimum fertility rate of 3.5 minimum. When therefore you see numbers battle between America and China, America that is now surviving on African brain by the green card because they destroyed their own population, they are now at 1.9. They are below zero population growth.
Okay.
They cannot survive. And
All right.
therefore,
Yeah.
when you talk about availability of the side effects of contraception, let's look at this country.
All right. Can we come back to you, Doctor, very quickly? We want to now also involve the couple who I think have been listening in, and they may have questions for us as well. But first, I want to ask Fadhili and Violet Muhammad. Let's start with you, Fadhili. And you had initially, from the information I got, refused your wife to use family planning. Tell us why.
It is because of religious belief, and also I believe that there is some negative effect about it. And that's why initially I was opposed to it.
Okay. So what changed? What is it that made you realize this is something that as a couple and for the well-being of your family you need to adopt?
Yes.
How come, what changed? What ended up changing?
I ended up changing it because of economic hardship our family was facing. And also, I realized that there are no negative effects about it.
No negative effects. You didn't experience, Violet didn't experience any negative effects?
No, she didn't have any problem when using FPs.
All right. How many children do you have, Violet?
We have five children at various ages.
I'm sorry, you have 5 children and?
We have 5 children born at different ages.
Okay. Are you going to stop at 5 children or do you plan to have more children?
I think 5 are enough according to our own economic status, the way we are.
Okay. Are you getting any help in trying to raise your family? Are you getting help, outside help, or are you managing on your own?
We just manage on our own, and sometimes we become overwhelmed by economic hardships.
Okay. Fadhili and Violet, I want you to, you have an opportunity to ask any one of our panelists any questions. So as we continue our discussion, you can take note of what's being discussed, and please feel free to raise any questions or concerns that you have about family planning. We'd love to hear Violet's voice, so please take a few notes and make sure that you ask us 1 or 2 things a bit later on. Let's go back to the discussion at hand. And Esther, what are we're now going to go into myths, so I'm told we're going to take a break actually, so we're going to come back to the discussion in just a moment.